Welcome to the Counselors of Real Estate's Top 10 in Podcast series. In these 10-minute episodes, we'll discuss one of the prevailing 2021-22 top 10 issues affecting real estate. I'm your host, Jonathan Schein, CRE, and CEO and Executive Director of the Real Estate Limited Partner Institute in New York. The Counselors of Real Estate are trusted advisors, finding solutions to complex real estate challenges. Experienced, innovative, and credentialed problem solvers, counselors practice in 21 countries and offer expertise in more than 60 real estate disciplines across all asset types and classes. Each has earned the prestigious CRE designation. Our guest for this episode is Dr. Hugh Kelly, CRE, principal of the consultancy Hugh Kelly Real Estate Economics in New York, and chair of the Fordham University Real Estate Institute's Master's Degree Curriculum Committee. He served as global chair of the Counselors of Real Estate in 2014. Hugh has authored the narrative supporting the number 7 issue on this year's compilation of top 10 issues affecting real estate, Political Polarization. That's a fun one. To review all the issues in this year's report, visit cre.org/top 10. So welcome, Hugh.
Good to be with you again, Jonathan.
Right. So as we know, we're living in a complicated, angry, and divisive country, a loosely bound whole made of two sides, seemingly incapable of bipartisanship. Is there any hope?
Well, yes.
Good answer. We can go on.
I don't take the counsel of despair, which gets us nowhere, right?
No.
Despair is paralyzing, and it short sells the future. And, I don't fall into either the inaction or the retrenchment camp. Our divisions go back into the colonial period. In 1796, George Washington gave his famous farewell address, in which he warned us about divisions and factions. And I'll have to say, no one paid attention to him then, and they haven't paid attention ever since. We've dealt with furious divisions in this country in the past. The Civil War, Reconstruction, the 1960s, right?
Sure.
And others that were equally divisive, but now may seem a bit quaint. Women's suffrage, for example, divided the nation. The gold standard divided the nation. Prohibition divided the nation. And people were up in arms over these things. And now we look back and see them as things that we have transcended, right?
Right.
So I think that that's important. The other thing that gives me hope is to get beyond the parochialism of the United States. There are numerous examples around the world of even deeper divisions that have been overcome. I got my doctorate from the University of Ulster in Northern Ireland.
Oh.
Northern Ireland's troubles were reconciled in the Good Friday Accords. You think of post-colonial India and Gandhi's ability to nonviolently overcome the divisions, not just between Britain and India, but within the factions in India. You think of South Africa and apartheid, right? You even think about Europe immediately following World War II, where there were millions of stateless people just wandering, and these were incredibly divisive periods. And yet we found a way to go beyond them. So we have a lot to learn from these examples. And I'll tell you, Jonathan, I'm working on a book project right now called Transcending Tribalism, which tries to learn the lessons of these difficulties and how to come. So my study, as much as my sentiment, is what is giving me some hope. I think lastly, let me take particular comfort in evidence like the polling of the Pew Research Foundation, which has shown at the level of individual issues, there is far more overlap in the American public, far more agreement, overlap in a Venn diagram sense than there is in the House of Representatives and in Congress. So our problem, in my mind, lies more on the political side of the partisanship than on the basis of the American people. And I think that's another reason for hope. That doesn't transcend, in other words, get above the conflict, but it gives us a transcendental or a foundational basis for going forward. And I think eventually we've got to touch ground on that transcendental basis.
Well, you brought up a very interesting point that we're looking short term. We live in, especially in our industry, we look in terms of quarterly reports, and what you're talking about cannot be fixed in a quarter.
No. That is certainly true. And, sadly, I think, Americans no longer truly study history. In fact, we hardly read at all. Martin Heidegger, the German philosopher,
sure,
had a wonderful book. And, there's plenty of reasons to not like Heidegger, right? He was a Nazi.
Well, that's a good reason. Bad reason.
He had a wonderful book called What is Called Thinking. And in it, he said, and this was just after World War II, he said, the most thought-provoking thing about this, our most thought-provoking age, is that we're still not thinking. I think those words can apply to us today.
We do live in reactionary times, that's for sure. So in your narrative on political polarization, you discuss healthcare and immigration as two examples of the problems confronting us as common issues, which you just discussed. How does real estate factor in?
Well, user demand for commercial properties, not only offices, but retail and hotels and even industrials, is debilitated by our inability for tenants and for landlords to plan confidently for the future. And so I think the uncertainty in terms of public health is a major reason for holding back on plans for growth. How can you invest in growth if you don't know whether we are at the end of the COVID era, which I don't think we are, or whether, in my pessimistic view, we're going to be at the point of having 1 million US deaths by this time next year? And I don't think that that's an outrageous forecast, because we were already at about 765,000.
Yeah, I believe more people died of COVID in 2021 than in 2020. Because of the two factors. One was the special virulence of the Delta variant. Yep.
And secondly, the fact that the percent of the population that is fully vaccinated now stands at 59%. But in more than half the states, we're below 54%.
Oh.
Down as far as 45%. Even the governor of Alabama is saying, get the hell to the doctor and get yourself vaccinated. So that people who do not feel comfortable to go out, or employers that do not feel comfortable about opening up their place of business, lest there be liability. I think that's one element on the health side.
Do you think that that's going to affect insurance rates as well for owners and of companies that need to take out insurance for basically COVID prevention insurance? Is that another factor that's coming in?
Boy, is that going to be debated in the halls of Congress and amongst the state insurance commissioners, right?
Sure. So let's move on. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's stuff. So there are myriad health issues, but to me, let's keep the focus on the big one, and the big one is COVID.
And the other one you just mentioned also was immigration.
Well, sure. Among all of the inflationary factors that we've been talking about in terms of supply chain disruption, the inability to move containers out of the ports because of a lack of truckers.
Yeah.
We've got a solution to that. There are tens of thousands of people clamoring to come into the United States who would love to drive a rig. So, and real estate, think about construction workers, right? Now, actually, in the last year, employment in the construction industry, both the basic trades and in the specialty trades, has actually risen very nicely, largely because of housing demand, right?
Yeah, sure.
But we're still hundreds of thousands of residential and commercial construction workers underneath where we were 10 years ago. We haven't gotten back to a decade ago. And and that workforce is aging.
That is for sure.
And so we need immigrants to come in to replenish that labor force.
We'd have no Erie Canal. We'd have no intercontinental railway system if it weren't for the immigrants.
Well, that's true. I'm in the No Irish Need Apply cohort. But you just take a look, for example, at what we gain, not just in blue collar labor from immigration, but in our intellectual capacity. Look at the innovation that has occurred and that has spurred economic growth that's come from Silicon Valley. And how many of the programmers are immigrants? Take a look at the elite high schools in New York City: Stuyvesant High School, Bronx Science, Brooklyn Tech. And how many of those students are immigrants? Not just Chinese.
Right, or children of immigrants.
But Indians, South Asians, people coming from Latin America. These are motivated, economically driven people. And the economy benefits from their energy. So why we continue to deprive ourselves of that energy is frankly beyond me.
Well, Hugh, let's hope that one day politics will once again be defined as the art of compromise, and we won't have this particular discussion again. So
it's true, that.
And so, I want to thank you for joining us today. All of the 2021-22 top 10 issues are highly interconnected and indicative of a changing and evolving real estate landscape. We're grateful for your knowledge, Hugh, and contributions to this year's report. Join us next time for another discussion of the top 10 issues affecting real estate. I'm Jonathan Schein, and on behalf of the Counselors of Real Estate, thank you for joining us in this episode of Top 10 in 10.